cold. Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I thought I would bring you a cozy sit down video updating you on what I've read this week. The last time that you guys saw me was during my 24-hour reading vlog, and I read A Court of Mist and Fury and Small Spaces by Katherine Arden. So that was on Sunday. I did post a LitJoy unboxing video, but that was filmed a while back and I just hadn't gotten around to editing it. So hopefully you guys liked that. You guys can find that in the description below if you're interested. But since then, I haven't really given you any updates. On Monday, I went to work and had a hell of a Monday. And then on Tuesday and Wednesday, I was actually homesick with a fever. So I slept most of the day, but then in the evening, I did pick up A Lesson in Vengeance. This book, I think I overhyped it a little bit, which I was afraid that I was going to do. I was so excited for this book and I thought I was going to absolutely love it, and I did really enjoy it. I gave it a 4-star. This story is about a young woman named Felicity Morrow who attends a very prestigious boarding school named Dalloway School, and she leaves during her senior year after a very tragic accident takes the life of her best friend slash girlfriend. And so she goes home for the year and is institutionalized. And then when she comes back, When she comes back, she starts seeing evidence that she's being haunted by the ghost of her girlfriend. Now, we know going into this story that our narrator is unreliable because she was institutionalized in the past. We know that she has a history of hallucinations. We know that she has a history of going off her meds. In fact, she's refusing to take her medication at the moment. And so we know that her perspective is unreliable. And that is one of my absolute favorite tropes in any kind of thriller horror story, is this tug of war between what is real and what is the figment of the main character's imagination or the consequence of mental illness. I studied psychology when I was in school before I ended up majoring in English and education, so I'm really interested excuse me, I am filming. Hi. Of getting into the nitty-gritty of what is real and what is not real. And so that aspect of this story was really, really well done. I would highly recommend this book if you are interested in any supernatural elements like ghosts and witches. The atmosphere was wonderful. The ending lacked a little bit in my opinion, but overall I thought it was an excellent read for this time of year. I feel like even now my memory of the details are starting to fade, so it's not a book that is going to stick with me, unfortunately, and I wouldn't say it's a favorite, but it was definitely worth the read and I would highly recommend it. Now, after I finished A Lesson in Vengeance, the library books that I have been waiting on for weeks came in on my Libby, so I was once again derailed on my October TBR, and I began reading the 2 Riley Sager books that came in on my Libby. So I listened to Home Before Dark and I listened to Lock Every Door, and I had very different opinions on both of these books. Home Before Dark I really, really enjoyed. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I found that it was very reminiscent of The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. I haven't actually read that novel, but I've watched the Netflix adaptation of it, and it is my favorite haunted house story that I've ever watched. So I was a little nervous going into this book, seeing so many similarities between that story and this story, and I was worried that it was just going to be a straight retelling of Shirley Jackson's story and that it would leave me feeling frustrated. And for a good half of the story, I was sitting at about a 3-star read. Not because it was bad. I was really intrigued by it. The writing was really well done. Home Before Dark is the story of a young woman who is living in the shadow of her father's novel. And this novel is the story of what happened to their family when she was a young child, living in a house that is said to be haunted. And she has no memory of the events that take place in this novel, and so she has always assumed that they have just been lies, that her father has lied about it, and that she has been living in the shadow of this novel for her entire life. And she has a lot of anger at her parents because of it, and whenever she tries to bring it up to them, they are very reluctant to talk about it and give her any straight answers. So the story begins with the death of her father and the discovery that he still owns that house. On her father's deathbed, he tells her not to go back. But what does she do? She goes back. And she tries to discover the truth behind what really happened while she was there as a child. This story is really, really well done. The characters are so interesting. The intrigue is there, the creepy, spooky vibes are there, and the twist at the end, I thought, was really, really well done. So, I 100% recommend this book. The second Riley Sager book that I read was Lock Every Door, and I gave this book 1 star. I did not like this book at all. I was immediately annoyed by the main character. So the story begins with this young woman who comes home on the day that she loses her job to find that her boyfriend is cheating on her. So essentially she ends up homeless, living with her best friend who is supporting her until she can get back on her feet. And this opportunity comes up where she can apartment sit in one of the most prestigious buildings in her city, and they will pay her $4,000 to stay there, with the catch that she can have no visitors and she cannot talk to anybody about what happens inside of the building. So automatically her best friend is like, what are you doing? This is sketchy as shit. Like, what are you thinking? And she willfully ignores all of the red flags because she says that she needs the money. Now, this automatically really frustrated me about her character because I could understand if she literally had nowhere to go and she was desperate, like it was this or being homeless. But she has a best friend who loves and cares about her and is willing to allow her to stay with her until she gets back on her feet. And I understand that $4,000 a month is a very strong temptation, but when you know in your gut that something is wrong and you still do it, it really annoys me. So it starts out bad and it just goes downhill from there, in my opinion. The characters in the story are very forgettable. They are not interesting in the least. I pegged who the bad person was going to be from the moment that they set foot in the story. I was like, oh, that's the bad person. And then they were the bad person. So that was very predictable and disappointing. And I didn't like the ending. I thought the ending was really weird and didn't make much sense at all, and was just generally very, very disappointed in this book. So I did give it a 1 star. Not a fan. Would not recommend. So after I finished that, I decided to pick up One Big Teeth. This was the second prompt in my haunted house, trying to get through Spoop's haunted house readathon, and I DNF'd this book. 2 books in a row that I did not like. Not having a good time. So this is a story of Eleanor. She comes from a family of monsters. Her brother, her sister, and her cousin, and her grandfather and her father are all werewolves. Her mother is some sort of sea monster. She lives in a bathtub or a barrel, depending on where she is in the house. And her grandma is some sort of witch with divination powers. And as a very young child, her grandmother ships her off to boarding school with no rhyme or reason that we know of, and completely cuts her off from her family. She intercepts every letter that Eleanor sends to her family and intercepts every letter that her family tries to send to Eleanor, and essentially cuts her off. She becomes an outcast from her family. Years later, she has a interaction with one of the other girls at the boarding school, and her monster characteristics come out and she just about kills her. So she flees the school and goes back to her family. And so much time has passed that she hardly remembers them. They don't know her, and she's frightened of them. And her grandmother is still cruel and is like, why did you come back? Why are you here? I told you not to come back. But we don't know why, and she refuses to tell her why. And then there's this scene where they go into a greenhouse, and her grandmother is drawing tarot cards for her to try and tell her future. It was all very cryptic and very frustrating because she was refusing to just come out and tell her exactly what was going on. And then the worst trope of any movie or any book that I could say, this is probably like my pet peeve of tropes, and it's when the person who has all of the knowledge dies, and then all of that knowledge is gone. And what was really frustrating is, as the grandmother is dying in this strange, sudden way, she tells Eleanor that she needs to take care of the family and take over everything. And I'm like, okay, you were just telling her that she needed to leave, and why was she there in the first place? So, like, it didn't make sense. It was frustrating. The refusal to communicate was really annoying to me, and I just couldn't get past it. So I DNF'd it. Instead, I picked up this book. It has an autumnal cover. It's a recommendation from my cousin who loves this author. It's called Bring Me Back by B.A. Paris, and already I'm really loving this story. I'm only 50 pages in. I'm hoping to finish most of it today before I go back to work this week. And essentially it's the story of a young man whose girlfriend goes missing at a rest area while they are traveling, which is really scary. I've always been afraid of that happening. So the beginning of this story was captivating to me automatically because the setting was really scary. And years later, he is engaged to marry his missing girlfriend's sister, and she's presumed to be dead. But then a series of events begins to happen where they're not so sure that she's dead, and they are possibly being stalked by her. So very creepy, very, very intriguing, and I am looking forward to finishing off this book as well. Okay, not gonna lie, I have been trying to film this video for like 3 hours now because I'm trying to use my phone and it is not reliable, and the storage keeps maxing out, and then the battery died, and then the video moved so that I was just a floating head. I hope that this version turned out okay because I really don't want to have to do it again. I'm really frustrated with my equipment. Hopefully I'll get an actual camera soon. That is like my ultimate wish. I hope that you guys are enjoying your October. Mine is flying by so fast with the amount of work that I've been doing. It's been flying by, and I sadly have not been able to do as much as I'd hoped that I would be able to do, but I am doing my best to take some small moments and enjoy the time that I have and make the most out of this spooky season, my first season on BookTube. I hope that you are doing all the things that make you the most happy during this time and taking care of yourselves, my dear friends, because you deserve it. If you liked this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more bookish content from me. And I will see you all in my next video. Take care.